स्पोर्ट्स से जुड़ी किसी भी अपडेट के लिए स्पोर्ट्स तक को सब्सक्राइब करें और हमारे फेसबुक और इंस्टाग्राम पेज को भी जरूर फॉलो करें।
Welcome and thank you very much, Kumar Sangakkara. The first question to you, Kumar. We now have seen the England versus West Indies series. We have seen the England-West Indies series on. We've seen 2 test matches. The third is on. Do you now think that cricket has been able to sort of come up with a formula, a biosafety formula, that we can actually get back with our sport as we wait for a vaccine or therapeutics? And how excited are you about this resumption that we have seen in England, between England, West Indies, and so far there has not been any problems?
Yeah, I think it's extremely encouraging that cricket has restarted and resumed the way it has. And I think there has to be a huge appreciation when it comes to the efforts that are being taken by the broadcasters, by the ECB, by the West Indies Cricket Board, and all those involved in making that series possible. The arrangements would never have been easy. And I think what we are seeing is a quick and definitive adaptation to our new reality. The cricket has been of absolute high quality. The 2 sides have been extremely competitive and well matched, and we saw 2 wonderful test matches and the series poised at 1 test match win each. And I think, although it is, yes, disappointing that the crowds are not there, maybe the energy and the buzz that you have at a cricket ground when crowds are present and are joining in with the players in terms of, feeding off each other's energy, we do have to understand that where we are now is probably at the infancy of, in terms of these adaptations taking place. The biosecure playing areas, they are extremely health conscious and secure safety precautions taken, even to the extent of changing the rules around the game and cricket for the moment. The banning of the use of saliva, the disinfection and sanitation of the ball, ensuring that all the players, broadcasters, anyone involved is highly conscious and responsible for their conduct in terms of ensuring the biosecurity of those playing areas, I think is absolutely commendable and necessary to ensure that players, the public and everyone and families all have the confidence that sport can continue despite COVID-19. I'm not sure how long we will have to keep this going.
Kumar, just in fact, you can carry on. That was my next question, actually, to a degree that maybe for 6 months, maybe 9 months, maybe a year, because clearly science will win. We are seeing major developments across the world, therapy, vaccines, but we are clearly identifying a formula. I mean, we now know that the IPL in all probability will happen in the UAE. The BCCI is extremely gung-ho and keen. We now know the India-Australia series will happen. We have seen Sri Lankan players back in training, New Zealand players back in training, Australian players back in training, getting ready for England. But 2 questions to you, Kumar. One, this series also is important because of what it is standing for. Michael Holding and that in 5 minutes, which we are calling his best over bowled. Before that, you put out 8 tweets, if I remember from memory, 8 tweets talking about Black Lives Matter. For me, every life matters. That's the message also being given out. Your thoughts on how sport is making a real stand about this burning pandemic, which is close to 200, 300 years old?
I think it's a great statement that has been made by everyone involved in sport. The spark that has given rise to this is not just about what happened in the recent past, but also in terms of putting into context historic injustices and making everyone understand that there is no place for such attitudes, such mindsets, a thought process, a perspective anymore in today's world. And I think as sportsmen and women around the world have, over this, particularly this period where it's been in focus, made very strong, emotive, and powerful statements. Michael Holding, especially talking about personal and family experiences and saying that enough is enough, but also understanding that change is not instant, but change is absolutely vital and necessary. And everyone has to not just talk about it, but participate and be active and action that change together. And I think being a cricketer that's played in the past in a country where these issues have always been topical, from a different context, from a different period of history. I think for us as Sri Lankans, or for Indians, or for any country, any nationality, this is such a topical and burning issue. And for us to be the best version of ourselves, to be at our best, it is absolutely necessary that we change our mindset. And we also understand the realities of history, not a disinfected, sanitized history. Even the greatest figures that we revere and learn about in our history books, to teach ourselves and our children who they really were, not just what they've done, but who they really were as people, what their real mindsets and ideas and ideals were, and how we learn to accept the fact that we are all actors on this world stage, and we all need to play our part to ensure that at least down the line, for future generations, our children, our children's children at least, that we leave a changed and a permanently changed world for the better. And I think that is something that we all have to really come to terms with, understand, and commit to. Yes, I understand what you say when all life matters, and it is as it should be. But for a large part of our history and the history of the world, when certain lives have mattered more than others, I think it is absolutely topical to stand back, accept that reality, however distasteful that may be, and commit to change. We've got to change ourselves. We've got to ensure that change reaches our elected representatives and is mirrored in the forms of government that we demand for ourselves. And it is mirrored in our education systems. It is mirrored in our everyday lives, our social connections, and that we definitely stamp down and say no more to racism.
That's what I meant, Kumar. I mean, that's exactly what I meant. I'm saying when we say Black Lives Matter, I am saying men of color matter, gender matters, class matters. In India, there is an issue of caste which matters. So we have been allowing people to discriminate other people. This has been a sense of entitlement almost in our history, and that is what we want to protest against. We have to. Now, here is a question not for Kumar Sangakkara, the cricketer. I mean, you have been a cricketing legend, fine, but you've also been the first non-Brit to be the president of the MCC. Now, tell me about that. Did you ever face anything like it? Did you ever get support? Did you think in your tenure as president of the MCC, the most conservative bastion of cricket in the world, Lords, did you feel that you were able to usher change of a certain sort, bring in a change in mindset?
Well, I think no one or no institution is immune from change. I think that's one absolute fact. Everyone changes, but the pace can be different. And for MCC, it is no different. Over the years, mindsets, perspectives, mired in centuries of tradition and history and heritage, slowly change and evolve for the better. And that is the real key, Boria. Not just change without purpose, but change with purpose, change for the benefit, not just of some, but for everyone. Yes, MCC is a private members club, but it holds a very special position in the world of cricket, in not just the country that it is alive in, but also beyond its shores internationally, and should be a beacon of inspiration and hope to everyone around the world. And the MCC is slowly becoming just that, a beacon where change is inevitable, and that change is with purpose, and that change is going to be beneficial when it comes to these topical matters. And the discussion and debate is very, very relevant and hot at MCC, at committee level and beyond, to ensure that MCC is a part of that change, is a positive part of that change, and it will continue to advance what is good and great in terms of not just the sporting spirit, but also the human spirit. And that change, it has begun a long time ago,
Fantastic.
and it continues today, and it will continue not just during my tenure, but beyond that. And the MCC will truly embody, epitomize, and reflect those constantly good and great human values, and have those values as an integral part of its being.
Kumar, what you say is music to my ears, because after you, Claire Connor takes over, and a woman taking over as president of the MCC is itself reflective of this positive change that you are talking about. But just moving on a little bit, you are an administrator. There's a lot of talk going on in the world about an imminent change in the ICC. Mr. Manohar's tenure has come to an end. There's some talk about Sourav Ganguly, who's a blue blood cricketer, one of your friends. Do you think if a cricketer of the stature of Sourav steps forward for a position in the ICC, can that benefit world cricket? Because you guys have played it, been there, done that, and now if you advise the next gen take cricket forward, it can make a difference. Will you think Sourav as an administrator can make a difference as the boss of the ICC?
Well, I think Sourav definitely can make that change. I'm quite a big fan of Dada, not just because of his stature as a cricketer, but I think that he has a very astute cricket brain. And he has the best interests of the game at heart, and that should not change just because you are BCCI president or president of ECB or SLC or any other cricket board. When you are at the ICC, your mindset should be truly international and not just constrained by partisanship in terms of where do I come from, am I Indian, Sri Lankan, Australian or English, but to really understand that yes, I'm a cricketer, and what I should be doing is what is best for all cricketing countries, and most importantly, the lifeblood, the foundation of this game, which are children, fans, and spectators around the world. And I think Sourav can do that very, very well. And I've seen his work, before taking up at the BCCI, even before, in terms of administration, in coaching, in how he has built relationship with players around the world, his standing in the MCC World Cricket Committee, so on and so forth. And I have no doubt that Sourav will be a very, very suitable candidate to do just that.
Excellent. And your take, you are one of the most listened to and admired and loved commentators of our game in India, and now it is almost a certainty. We've gone for government clearance that the IPL will happen. The IPL is not simply a tournament, and here, Kumar, I really want you to say this for my viewers. There is some talk about, sport can wait. Sport is not simply sport or entertainment, it is also livelihood. It is about our first class cricketers, about broadcasters, about us journalists, about the groundsmen. There is a whole industry around sport which the IPL can help sustain. So how important is it, according to you, if the IPL does happen in the UAE, for the whole cricket industry in the world to inject a sense of positivity and to keep the cricket economy going? And will you please say something to these detractors who say, sport can wait while every other sphere of economic activity can restart?
Well, I think sport and the sporting economy and its knock-on effect is connected to every other economic activity, and it's a great part of contributing to a nation's economy. And the IPL, especially and all other tours and tournaments, as we have seen, produce not just a tangible economic benefit, but also a sense of mental and social well-being. It is a form of escapism, yes, when things are down and out in our part of the world over the years. When you watch a cricket match or cricket is on TV or at a ground, it kind of brings about a sense that everything is back to normal and that life is actually normalized. Right now, we see the effects of the pandemic and COVID-19 in the way cricket is played, in its rules and regulations, in the fact that it's played in biosecure environments and at closed stadia where public has no access. But the fact that millions around the world have access to those sporting spectacles through the television, through streaming devices, I think has a huge positive impact in terms of mindset, in terms of mental well-being, in terms of inspiring younger people to take up this wonderful sport. And also, like you said, everyone whose livelihoods are connected to this, not just the players, but also the service providers, the broadcasters, journalists, even the groundsmen and groundswomen around the world, everyone who is connected has a huge positive impact. And especially for the UAE, if the IPL is played there, the knock-on effect of its contribution into that local economy will also be extremely huge. And for the cricketers and everyone connected to that, it'll be a huge sigh of relief that yes, that their livelihoods are secure, and that the cricketing life is continuing and adapting, and doing its part in terms of not just benefiting the stakeholders, but also the larger, in terms of contributing towards a larger picture.
Kumar, Sourav Ganguly was on this show earlier, a couple of weeks back during his birthday, and he made this point that end of the year India travels to Australia for what he calls, quote, a milestone series. And I in fact asked him, you are saying this is more important than the World Cup for Virat Kohli? And he said, yes, I think so, because this is real legacy. And he goes on to say he expects Virat Kohli's team to be really competitive and challenge Australia. He wants India to desperately win. How are you looking at that particular series? Virat Kohli versus Steve Smith, India going down under again. The whole cricket world will be looking at that series, India v Australia. How are you looking at that?
I think it'll be an extremely exciting series. We saw what Virat and his team did before in Australia. They made history. They were extremely competitive, extremely fired up to deliver on something that was highly important to not just Virat personally, but to Indian cricket as a whole. And this time around, it's going to be much tougher. Australia has really progressed from where they were at that particular time to the team that they are now. And I'm really looking forward to a very, very intense contest. Both sides will be all out to ensure that, that they win the series. Individual players will have their own battles. Virat Kohli will like to leave his mark in terms of cricket history in trying to win a second series in Australia and having his performance at the peak. You have Stephen Smith, you have Mitchell Starc. You have, an Australian team that is very, very hungry to keep making the statement that they are the best in the world in any condition against any side.
Kumar, without saliva on that kookaburra, do you think that will have any major impact? I mean, does that change the equation a little bit? Both sides have really good fast bowlers and swing bowlers. What kind of impact? I mean, from what you've seen so far, Jimmy Anderson, some of the test matches in England, what is the kind of impact you are gauging the new rules are having on the game?
Well, it's still too early to really say that the Duke's ball is slightly different to the Kookaburra ball, and each one behaves differently in their own conditions. The Kookaburra ball does need a lot of effort to keep the shine, at a premium right throughout a game. But then, of course, you will have the emergence of natural reverse swing, perhaps a lot quicker. Bowlers will have to adapt in terms of maybe even combinations of the side. Do we play one spinner or two spinners? And what sort of bowling and what sort of conditions will really make these rule changes effective in terms of delivering victories for their side?
My last few minutes on the show, Kumar. So let me ask you an IPL question once more. I mean, the IPL so far has been also about fans. I mean, the moment a wicket falls, the broadcaster immediately cuts to the fans, chock-a-block stadiums, people sort of loving every moment of the action. As a commentator, and here I'm assuming you will be part of the world feed, you will commentate because we want to hear you. How difficult will it be for you as a commentator to sort of keep that momentum going? Or how do you think the players will react to it? Do you think it can eat into the IPL, or do you think because people are starved, like we are all starved in India waiting for the IPL, there will be an enormous consumption of this tournament on television this year the moment it is launched, or even the dates are announced and finally when the first ball is bowled?
It's been an interesting thing to see really and be a part of. Like I said before, The connection between the fans, the players, the commentators at a ground, and each one feeding off, each other's energy is such an important part of conveying the buzz around the ground to someone who's watching, 1,000 or so miles away. And that dynamic will change for sure. But then again, as professionals, all the stakeholders have to raise their games, lift themselves up, and still create that buzz in and around the game so that spectators watching on TVs and their smart devices are continuously engaged and deliver a product of premium and high quality. Yes, everyone will understand that it is going to be a different spectacle in terms of the seats being empty. There is a very, very good reason for that. And at the same time, I think this is also a very good time to connect cricket and cricketers and its stakeholders to actually what is happening in the world today, how this pandemic has affected people's lives, how it has affected economies and social connections, how it has impacted upon our healthcare professionals who day in, day out have to really, fight, risking their own safety and their own lives to save other people's lives, to understand how responsible we are as people, not just cricketers, for each other, and the contribution that we can make in our own way as sports persons around the world being involved in this wonderful game, back to society, back to those health professionals, back to our societies that really need a boost, back to disadvantaged communities that need a helping hand, back to our own countries that need energy and an input of vibrancy to restart economies and lives. So I think it'll be a wonderful time to tie cricket in, what we do as professionals, in to what is actually happening in the real world, and make that connection really strong and really permanent.
Interesting. And if I can sort of take on from there, you use the word energy, you use the word leadership. And when I watch England versus West Indies, and I watch that one man, Ben Stokes, he's bowling, there was no mid-on, mid-off, so he runs to the boundary, fields the ball, throws it back, picks up a wicket the very next over, then goes out to bat and gets an 80 odd, and then comes out and cleans up the West Indies with crucial wickets. If you are tired, that's what Ian Bishop tweeted as well. If you are tired, watch this man. If you are down, if you feel negative, if you feel gloom, watch sport. A word on such performances, does that give you a lift, whether it is from anybody? And the way Ben Stokes is going, has he now settled it? The best all-rounder in the world at the moment, the best player in the world at the moment?
It's all about taking pride in your professional ability, in your skill, and your ability to deliver upon that skill in tough times. And I think for Ben Stokes, he captained the first test, yes. Joe Root comes back. But it's a great example to show everyone that leadership is not just about a nominated position. Leadership is about inspiration. It's about example. And you can't go beyond Ben Stokes for those two test matches. And even in the past year, in terms of 2019, and what he brought to England cricket and world cricket and to his teammates and to the fans in England and beyond. A sense of purpose, leadership, inspiration, and he was a shining example in the last 3 weeks in terms of what commitment, professionalism, high skill and ability can really deliver. And he didn't look to anyone else to provide that. He took that burden upon himself and he delivered magnificently on it. So he's shown that he's matured. He's gone through a really tough time in terms of getting to this stage where not just his skill, but his mental skills have also matured, and they're matching up really, really well with his personality. And he's shown himself to be a fantastic leader.
Last one, Kumar, my last final minute. It's been tough for you also. I mean, it's been tough for everybody. But what keeps inspiring you? I mean, you are a thought leader. You are one of the leaders of our society as a cricketer. Now, as an administrator, you are looked up to by several millions of people. But what keeps Kumar Sangakkara positive, and what keeps inspiring you?
Well, I think there's a lot to inspire everyone. And it doesn't have to be great big deeds or great events that keep happening, in your personal life or in your own country or beyond. It's about being able to, I think, connect positively with people around your family, your friends, and society at large. Stay relevant and be relevant, and understand that you are part of tradition, part of history, yes, but you're also part of progression and the moving forward of the time you live in, and that you are going to leave a legacy for someone else to pick up on and be a part of. Whether that's your own children, whether that's as you say, in a nominated leadership position or government, whether you're a public figure, anywhere, anyhow. If you really want to be inspired, I think the lessons are there all around us. What's happening in our world, in our society, in your own homes, take notice, educate yourself, and change your mindsets. And I always say we have to learn to live with open minds, open hearts, and open hands. And I think if you want, if you can make a commitment to that, you can keep inspiring yourself and maybe quite a few others.
This has been an absolutely magical episode of E-Inspiration from one of the real legacy people. You mentioned the word legacy. You've created and carved out your own legacy, and that's what Kumar Sangakkara is all about. I hope all of you loved it. I enjoyed speaking to Kumar. You're in Sri Lanka, situation somewhat better. Hope it stays that way and gets better. Sooner than later, I will want to come by and try some of the seafood in your restaurant and see you commentating in the IPL and catch up soon. Till then, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep contributing to our sport and make it a better world. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you, Boria. Been a great pleasure. Take care. Stay safe.